I have finally read it, and now I understand why many of you hate this book, but then many of you love this book. The often lauded, the often feared, Titus Groan by Mervyn Peake. But before we get into where I fit on the spectrum, what is the hook? What is Titus Groan about? In the crumbling labyrinth of Gormenghast, newborn Titus Groan inherits a decaying dynasty. Scheming courtiers and shadowy corridors pulse with secrets as a gothic world teeters on the edge of change. You guys know how I love characterization in books. However, unfortunately, in this book, there is zero characterization. There is only caricaturization. Every character in this book is incredibly stylized. I don't want to say larger than life, but something otherworldly. They don't represent any kind of reality we live in today. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, there's plenty of people who enjoy stylized characters. I'd argue things like Dickensian novels by Charles Dickens, exhibit a similar cast of characters, and you can tell that Mervyn Peake was heavily inspired by Charles Dickens's work. When you have names like Lord Cod and Lord Sepulgrave and Dr. Prune Squalor, I'm sure you can imagine what kind of characters you are up against. They feel right at home in an animated Tim Burton movie, and I actually think if this ever made its way to the screen, that is the best way it could be brought to life. While these characters are colorful, they're distinct, they have their own flavors of personality, they don't come close to having the soul, the flesh and blood of living people. So if you're okay with that, you might find something to enjoy here. But what do these characters get up to in this novel, you ask? Well, let's talk about the plot. This plot is an absolute slog, but I think that's kind of the point. All of these characters exist in this labyrinthine castle that's been here for hundreds, if not thousands of years. They're traveling down dark corridors or not even sometimes leaving their own rooms. They might have meals together, they might be lurking in the shadows, they might just be doing and often are the most monotonous and seemingly pointless things. But I think that's kind of the point. I feel like Mervyn Peake was trying to demonstrate the sluggishness of the aristocracy, because that's exactly what we have here. We have Lord Sepulgrave. He is the lord of the castle, of course, and he has a bunch of servants, he has siblings, he has a child, Titus Groan, who was born, and they are going to celebrate his birth. And from what I've read, Mervyn Peake's intention was to write a really long series a la David Copperfield, where Titus Groan starts off as a child, and in the very final book, he dies as an old man. Unfortunately, Mervyn Peake tragically died too young, so he was not able to write any more than 3 books. His wife tried her hand at a 4th volume, which I hear has mixed reviews. But outside of this child being celebrated, outside of the vignettes, let's call them, of all the characters coming to life, there is a glimmer of a plot, and that plot is Machiavellian, you might say. There is an individual who I'm not going to name to not spoil it for you, but he has a plan of his own to disrupt the goings-on of the castle and its inhabitants, which is another piece of commentary that's very, very much on the nose. In fact, it's, if not spoken aloud in this novel, it's described in a very, very clear way. But it's okay, because really, more than anything, this novel is about the vibes, which I think we should talk about next. And it is most clearly defined in the writing itself, or as I like to call it, the cinematography of the novel. This is the part that you're either going to love or you're either going to hate. Just as I mentioned, the plot is a slog. It is a very deliberately paced, and I'm not even sure if that's the right term to call it, order of events. The writing here is just as sluggish. When I first started reading this novel, there's a scene with a character named Rodcod and Flay, and they're having a conversation. And I believe it took him a half a page, if not a full page, to cross the room and open the door, this being Rodcod. I'll try to find the excerpt and put it up here just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So a really long time for an event to unfold, for an event to happen. And in many cases, in many books, this is going to happen within the span of a single line. But the writing, it is beautiful, it's evocative, there's a ton of vocabulary in it I just did not know, and thankfully I had my Kindle dictionary at hand to inform me. But it's musical, it's colorful, it's ripe enough to be savored, but that just might not be for everyone, because I think we're accustomed to a more modern way of writing. However, I will say that the writing itself fits the novel. It fits exactly what I think Mervyn Peake's intent was. Commenting on the aristocracy, showing the glacial pace at which the lives of people who are involved in that unfold. But at the end of the day, say everybody has different tastes when it comes to reading novels, and so rather than me completely injecting how I feel about this thing, I had to take a step back, because every once in a while, more often than not it seems like for me, is I read a novel that I know is not written for me or readers like me. And so I have to take a step back and analyze this thing and try to decipher what the author's goal was in telling the story. Because as a reviewer, I don't think reviews are explicitly about the reviewer's opinion. And that's really what I'm trying to get away from in my reviews, or at least balance it with kind of a quote unquote objective point of view. And with novels like this, with novels like Titus Groan, it's easy for me to step back and take a look at this thing more analytically. And at the very least, I think he was consistent with what he was trying to achieve. Even though it may be a slog, it may be boring, the characters may not even feel like real people at all, the writing may be too dense and flowery for most of us, but at the very least, I can respect this novel. And so this score is going to be kind of a blend of how I felt about it and if I feel that Mervyn Peake achieved what he set out to do. And that score is a 7 out of 10. A Dickensian fantasy-like novel full of characters that are more caricatures than anything else, with a plot that is sluggish, but I think that's the point, just like the writing, which is evocative, it's beautiful, and it demands to be savored. But let me know, what did you think out there? Have you read Titus Groan? Did you hate it? Did you love it? I told myself I would make this review a little bit shorter to hopefully act in contrast with what Mervyn Peake was doing. And even if I didn't succeed, hopefully I gave you a really rough idea of at least what to expect in this novel, because again, I know this novel was not for me. And so I wanted to frame this review with that in mind. So thanks for watching, thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you in the next one.